Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Keeping It Real Estate Show. My name is Dan Breezy, and today we want to welcome on the show Jerome Maldonado. Jerome has been an entrepreneur, longtime business owner, and investor in real estate for the majority of his life. Some of the businesses Jerome has acquired are Radio Shack and Pier 1 Imports. Over the span of his 20-year career, he's completed over 500 real estate transactions equivalent to over $250 million in value. Jerome is a speaker, business and mentality coach, and the co-author of the book, Own Your Dreams, How to Take Possession of the Life You Deserve. With that being said, welcome to the show, Jerome.
What up, Dan? How are you, brother?
Hey, great. Glad you came on with us. Appreciate your time. You know, I want to start out with something that I saw on your website that I just wanted to kind of hit right out of the gate, and then we can go back to some of maybe your earlier time. But you said on your site here, the key to a successful business is compounding your success. What does that mean exactly to you?
You know, it's like compounding interest. You know, anybody who is in the finance, banking industry understands that when you compound your money and you have your money working for you, it builds in spite of your own efforts. And so when I talk about compounding your success, it's in the same regards. It's about going out, creating business and a lifestyle where everything that you do is methodical in regards to building it with passive residual income. So it compounds, because over time, it really takes a lifetime to create really long longevity in wealth. And when you're doing that, when you're compounding it and things are building and you're continuing to work in one sector, but you have 5 or 6 other ones that are working in spite of you working on this one here, it's compounding without your energy, without your attention, because you've already put the attention you needed to build something. So it's just compounding your success and allowing it to grow exponentially over the course of time.
Yeah, that's powerful, you guys. I mean, it's interesting to me growing up. I never really heard about having my money work for me until I started to go out and look for ways to have more freedom. You know, all of you that are listening that have been on our previous shows, you know, I had this snowboarding career, and then I was trying to find a way to get the money that I was making to work for me. So I think, Jerome, that's exactly what you're talking about, is how can you do the work once and get paid repetitively with very, very little effort moving forward?
Yeah. So you're a big snowboarder. You ever done any heliboarding?
Oh yeah. We spent some time up in Alaska. Yeah, it was something that it wasn't my specialty. I grew up in Minnesota, so I had more of an urban background, but we definitely got into the heli in Alaska regularly, and Valdez, Haines, and then we had a heli trip in Italy. So yeah, are you?
Yeah, bro. I was up there with Dean Cummings with H2O heli ski. Yeah, I've
Really?
hit the back cats and backside of over in Vancouver. And so, yeah, I've hit the backcountry and done a lot of heli skiing and all over the place.
That's awesome. So are you a skier or a snowboarder?
I'm a snowboarder, man. I snowboard. I skied too, but I only ski for my kids. But I've been boarding since I was in college. So the better
Yeah.
of 30 years.
I love it, you guys. You know, I didn't know. I had no idea. So we have some stuff to chat about afterwards. That's really cool. Well, let's bring it back a little bit. You know, clearly you've led an impressive couple of decades in business. If you want to start off by giving our listeners a little background, maybe starting from your childhood, you know, up to your 20s, what was it like? What would you say some of the values you maybe got from your parents were that helped you, get to a place of where you are now? Anything that you can share?
You know, my parents are traditional. They come from a lower economic stature in a small town, more of a farming town. Growing up, didn't come from a lot of affluency or wealth. Although I did, we did. My parents worked hard, did the traditional go to school, get the education. My dad was an accountant, CPA for a better of 32 years. And my mom is still working. She's in her 70s and she's still building nonprofit organizations. But I remember the days when she was working at Levi Strauss in the factories and driving school buses as a child and working her way up, doing bookkeeping and other stuff. And she builds nonprofit organizations. But and she was always a go-getter. And I think a lot of my driven work ethic comes both from my mom and dad, but my mom is really that go-getter. She wasn't an entrepreneur by any stretch of the imagination, but just really advocated for hard work. And I think that has been a pinnacle piece of everything that we've done. the consistency of hard work. I tell my kids, I use athletics for them as a tool to parent, to teach them about work ethic. Not that I think that beating yourself up and killing yourself is the way to do this. There's a smart way to do it, but you're going to work hard anyways, no matter what. The story that, you got to work smart instead of hard. Yeah, you do got to work smart, but you got to work smart and hard. I don't think there's one or the other. It's kind of a combination of both, working smart and hard. I've met a lot of really smart people that were lazy, that didn't do anything. They drove me crazy. And I've met a lot of really hard workers that didn't have a lot of smarts, and they drove themselves crazy. So I think a little mixture of both is what's needed. And so I got that from my childhood. And I use athletics for my kids because we drive them so aggressively with their schedules that they're so busy. Like I tell my wife, and I even tell my kids, when life becomes real for them at some point in time, because it becomes real for all of us at some point in time. I remember people telling me, including my parents, that when I left the house, life was going to get hard, right? Like you had to pay bills, and you had electric and gas and water and food and all this stuff. I never felt that. Like when I left home, I was like, fuck yeah, I'm out of here, man. Like it was cool. I was like, damn, I'm out of here. And I never struggled. Not in that way. I struggled a lot in business, but never in that way. Making a living to me was always simple. It just never really was that hard to put a roof over your head and like eat. It's everything else that was complicated. So I want my kids to feel like that. I want them when they leave to feel like, hey, Dad, you gave us everything we need, right? Like this isn't that hard, So,
Yeah. Love it. I love it. And I think that piece of work ethic and seeing your parents, put the time in. It sounds like my background is pretty dang similar. I grew up in central Minnesota, smaller farm town. Parents worked very hard, but they weren't affluent in any way, shape, or form, but they both worked very hard. And I think that is something that is not said probably enough, of that it does take action and massive action. And it doesn't matter which way you go, whether you're going to be a bum, working to find your drugs and live in a tent, versus someone who's working a job, versus someone who's an entrepreneur. Any way you go in life, there's going to be challenges. There's going to be work. And at the end of the day, what hard do you want to have? I was talking to my son about that this morning. What way do you want to go? My son's Zealand. Do you want to go with the tent? Do you want to go with the employment, or do you want to go with the entrepreneur? No ways. I mean, you tell me which way is the best. I think I know mine, but what's yours?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
it is. And it's important. And I tell my kids the same thing. You got to groom. They've got to groom. You groom them, and then at some point in time, they become their own independent person, and they become that as a child. But allowing them to just explore that is super important.
Yeah. So, with that being said, growing up, your traits, habits that you've acquired in, let's just say your first decade or so of being an entrepreneur, what would be the things that you think made you unique or made you succeed the way you have?
I think what made me succeed in so many ways was ego. A lot of it was ego and pride. I struggled so bad in the beginning that I should have probably quit multiple times. I couldn't let my ego and my pride take the better end of my failures in the beginning. In all honesty, I couldn't come back home. I talked so much trash to friends that talk trash to me. You get a lot of opinions and people beating you up, scorning you along the way, telling you it's wrong. Well, I grew up in a very competitive nature. I grew up wrestling my whole life. Very competitive in sports and just in life with all my cousins. And so when someone lashed out at you, we didn't really put our heads down and crawl into our shell like a turtle. We'd fight back, verbally, physically, however it was. And so growing up, when someone talked shit to me, sort of say, so excuse my friends, I talk shit right back to them. And so my pride, my ego, I was like, shit out. Now I got to put my money where my mouth is. I got to put my pride in my back pocket, and I just got to make this work. So I think what really drove me in the beginning was the fact that I talked so much garbage back to people that I had to make it work. I could not come back and have failed. It would have made me look really bad in my eyes. And that's really all that matters, is what it looks like in your eyes. It doesn't matter what it looks like in anybody else's eyes, because everybody forgets about you anyways. They have enough of their own problems. It really is important that you mentally feel like you have succeeded for you and only you. Because if you don't, then you're doing it for all of the wrong reasons. Unless you're married and you have children, then you're doing it for you and for them because of the stability and the stability and the lifestyle that you've got, that you owe your family, period.
Yeah, gosh, I love it. I love it. Those are two that I had not heard yet, which is great. Ego and pride. So basically, if I'm following you correctly, you basically talked enough game where you said, this is what I'm going to do and I'm going to make it happen. And you were at that point not going to go back to the folks that you told that to and say, I guess I couldn't make it. I did fail. Is that really what it was?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I didn't have a family or kids. I was in my young 20s. And so it was really just self-pride for myself. Hey, I'm gonna make it, and I'm not gonna go home until I do. And I used to tell myself that. I said, I am not going home until I make it. And making it is arbitrage, right? Like, it's like, what is it? It's in your eyes. To me, it was standing on my own 2 feet, running my own business, making money, doing something that I had a better lifestyle than any of them did. That was like making it in my eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I love it. Using ego and pride to catapult you to add value in the world and to use it as, because usually when I hear ego and pride, I think of it as negative things. Well, in this way, it was a very positive thing and has helped you become who you are. So I love you sharing that. And then, the thing you pointed out that I think is so damn critical is, how do you feel about you? When you're going through life and you're going through your business affairs and you're on a day-to-day basis and you're looking at yourself in the mirror, how do you feel about you? Do you feel, are you incongruent with who you are? I think that sometimes that can just be lost and it's forgotten and it's not really, thought about. So I'm really glad you shared that. Okay. So I wanted to kind of just ask a little bit about your team. You guys just decided to start buying failing businesses. Is that right? What was the mythology behind that? How did that happen?
So that's not all entirely me in that sector. I'm more of the real estate development guy, the ground up construction and real estate development entrepreneur, and I have a lot of other companies as well. But I do have ownership in a lot of the compromised brands like Radio Shack, Pier 1, and some of the ones you mentioned, through the ownership and partnership of Ty Lopez and Dr. Alex Meir, great friends of mine, business partners. Just took down Tuesday Morning, which went from 600 to 400 stores nationwide, and just a whole entirely different dynamics. Now, I kind of partnered into that in regards to buying my way in with as an equity owner alongside of Ty and these guys that are e-commerce gurus. That was just something that Ty Lopez, being the entrepreneur and e-commerce professional that he was, when the opportunity came pre-pandemic, when retail was dying, early 2018, 19, he just noticed that there was opportunity there. So one of the first ones that was purchased was Dress Barn. And then a year later, thank God, because we learned a lot going through Dress Barn. 2019, I did a training called Real Estate Domination. We didn't have no manufacturer, didn't buy no inventory, was having problems fulfilling orders, and was able to introduce Alex and Maya, who are the primary owners, along with Ty, to a manufacturer out of Long Beach, California. They were able to facilitate the manufacturing of female clothing to fulfill the orders. And there was some different dynamics that were learned. And a year later, Pier 1 Imports was picked up. And we learned a lot through the acquisition of Dress Barn. And then when the pandemic hit in 2020, from Pier 1 Imports and Radio Shack to Linen and Things, Franklin Mint, Model Sporting Goods, all of these companies that had almost 100 years worth of brand recognition came to sale for just pennies on the dollar. So they picked up the intellectual properties and put them back to work. And if you go to Pier 1 Imports now, you can see a list of all the different brands that have been picked up and owned, and we have ownership of over the last few years. And there's a plethora of them now. And so really cool. It's been a lot of work. I'll tell you that the acquisition of Tuesday Morning beat up the company for a little bit because it was a massive undertaking. But just like anything, there's bumps in the road, and no matter how experienced or seasoned you think you are, these were some uncharted territory for Ty and these guys. And we're going through a little bumps in the road right now. But all those bumps in the road are just that. They're bumps in the road. We'll get through all the bumps. And it was a massive play, and it's going to be a game changer in regards to hopefully taking the companies public sooner than later, and coming in with some institutional backing and so forth to really blow the companies back up to where they should be and need to be in all reality.
Yeah, so you guys are hearing it right here. I mean, buying companies that you know well and still challenges. I mean, it doesn't just mean it's just this easy game, no problems. It's challenges along the way, and I love how you're terming it as bumps along the way, and that the mentality is that they will get over them, and it's just what's the best way to get through those challenges. So, when did you get into real estate specifically, and what was your first entry to it?
1999. I bought my first property. I was in direct sales and multi-level marketing. I was a multi-level marketing guy through and through for 5 years. I was in the top 30 money earners of a company that had over 300,000 distributors. I was a trainer for the company, and we got shut down in 1997 by the FTC. And so I came back to finish my college degree in 98. 98, I started opening up and dabbling with independent companies. I got into the concrete field. Don't even ask me why. That's a whole story in its own. Never in my life thought I'd be pouring concrete. And we started doing decorative concrete on a commercial basis, on a large scale, all over the country. Made a little bit of money. Knew how to market a business, or at least thought I did. No one told me I didn't know how, so I did it. And we took that company to 7 figures in less than 12 months in gross revenue. We took it to 7 figures, making a strong 6-figure income. And I jumped into real estate just to buy some homes. I just didn't want to be in a position like I was in 97, where I put all my hard work for 5 years into something and I was left with nothing, not even anything tangible to show for it, because I bought a bunch of dumb shit. So I started buying rental homes, and I bought 2 that year, and I didn't care for the rental home deal. And since I was in construction, I thought, well, let me try building these things and seeing if I can see how much money I can make doing it. Landed up making about 80 grand on the first build I did. Took me about 6 months to build it full turnkey. So I was like, cool, this is cool. Within 2 years, we're doing about 12 units a year. And that's where we really hit millionaire status, was building homes. And 2 years later, I had netted and paid taxes, and our companies, we knew we had hit millionaire status. I was buying retail centers at the same time. The first one, really not because it was methodical, really was because I got kicked out of my house. I didn't get kicked out of my house, but my business, my neighbors took me to court to kick me out of running my business out of my house. And so I was forced to buy a commercial property.
Well, so, why were your neighbors kicking you out of your house? Why did they care?
Because it was zoned residential. I was running fleet trucks. I mean, I had work trucks. I mean, 6:45 every morning. We had the whole street both sides of the road lined up with employees, trucks, trailers, you name it. And we were running a full-on construction company on a small road with 6 homes in a cul-de-sac. So they hated me. And so I was forced to buy a commercial building. But my thought was, why pay rent? Like, it was as simple as this. I was like, damn, I don't want to pay rent. I was running this stuff for free. Well, I'll just buy a building bigger than I need. I'll rent most of it, and I'll just make my tenants pay the mortgage for me, and I'll be there rent free like I am now. So that's what I did. I bought an old building. It was about 8,000 square feet, and I rented out 5 units. I kept one, and I used the back of the property to store equipment. And we still own that building today. That thing's made us over $2.5 million in rental incomes over the last 20 years, and it's just a little building. And then I started building those things in 2004.
Okay.
We started building retail centers new. I'd done probably like 4 or 5 of them by that time that I were value add that I picked up. And I was building probably, 20 homes a year by that time, and retail centers. And we kept doing that. We kept pushing and doing that all the way into the recession. And then when the recession hit, we almost got put out of business. We'd gotten too aggressive, too over leveraged, and all of our ambitious efforts almost put us out of business in 2008. So we had to reconvene and reposition our business thoughts and how we were doing things. And we got through it without losing anything. But we got back into the value add space, more so in multifamily at that time. And we drove that sector all the way to 2016. And then 2016, I started noticing the prices were leveling to about the prices they were pre 2008 recession. And so I got a little scared. I thought, man, shit, prices are almost back to where they were. In some sectors they were. So I said, I can build these things with so much equity. I'll start doing that. So in 2016, I started pressing towards not just buying value add multifamily, but actually building them ground up. And so that's where we're at now. We got about $180 million on the books right now in new development. Yesterday, Dan, I was down in Phoenix on a $35 million build that we're doing. Couldn't get a survey company to get out there to help us with the survey stuff for our underground guys. And when I talk about work ethic, this is just one example. I got a partner on that project, and we're trying to get our cost segregation, which means we get our tax write-offs for the year. And I needed this one for this year. I'll end up having to pay millions of dollars in taxes this year. And so so in order to do that, we need our underground, we need our water and sewer connected. And we couldn't get a survey company out there quick enough to get the underground guys their stuff. So being in concrete, I used to set curb and gutters and stuff for all my guys years ago. Hadn't done it in a long time. But I told our GC, I said, Scott, I'll be down there. I took a 5 a.m. flight to Phoenix yesterday. I was on site by 8:30. I said, you have a transit ready for me. You have a tape measure. You have a set of plans. Get me a ruler, some tape, and some stakes. And I said, I'll set that whole friggin' property for us. And I will get the underground dudes ready to go. And so my business partner goes, shit, I got to see this. So we went up there and I set the whole friggin' property for him yesterday. It took me about 6 hours, and I did 100% of the survey stuff for him yesterday. And we're worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But Dan, it's just, so you talk about pride and ego and stuff. It's knowing when to use it to drive you, and it's knowing when to put it in your back pocket and get shit done to make things happen. Me not showing up yesterday would have cost me millions of dollars in taxes. And all it took was 6 hours of my day and putting my pride in my back pocket, putting on my work boots and going back out there like it was day one to just help out the team. Right. And so we got it done, man. We flagged the whole property. I set elevations for fire hydrants and manholes and sewer lines and you name it. I set it all yesterday for them.
Wow.
And let's go back to your roots, bro.
I got to ask a little bit here. I want to touch on two things you talked about there. A lot of great information. When you went through the Great Recession in real estate, what would be your couple biggest takeaways, or what maybe changes did you make so that moving forward, you guys were more bulletproof depending on what economic environment you went through?
Yeah, the way we purchased land was a big one. That was one big one that we did. We would take everything down and purchase it before we got a project started. I really hyper-focused on controlling assets without owning them so that it reduced my liability, which has since served its purpose in regards to being able to pick things up at a discounted price. The COVID made that real and confirmed, gave us affirmation. The first few months of the pandemic, going in from like March, April, May of 2000, this is where everybody thought the world was falling apart, right?
Yep.
So we had acquisitions just like we did in 2008. Difference in 2008 is we had taken these down and we took ownership of them. So we were engulfed in these assets. What we did otherwise was we didn't purchase them; we just controlled them. Meaning, we already had purchase agreements set in place. We had money obligations on the table, but we didn't have ownership. So our liability hadn't really opened yet. And so we were able to leverage that with discounted prices, going back, telling sellers, hey, look, man, like this pandemic is unforeseen. We're either going to walk or we need a discount. So that's one small piece that we did. We changed on our business model, was controlling assets instead of owning them. And then once we were ready to develop them, then we would take ownership of them. Another thing that we did was we did a lot of build and sell. And I was in the process in 2008 getting into the passive, the real long-term passive, higher net worth end of it, where we were building out bigger retail. That's what almost took us down. So what we did is I needed more doors. And I always used to tell colleagues this. I said, look, they used to go and go, I'm buying one building, I want one tenant. And I said, why do you want one tenant? And he would always tell me, he goes, Jerome, and his name was Pat. Pat would go, Jerome, I don't want to deal with the hassles. I just want one big tenant. I go, well, what happens, Pat, when that one tenant leaves? I said, you're screwed, man. And it's such a big property. And he goes, no, they're not going to leave, And this was like his mentality. And so I said, I'd rather have 4, 5, 6, 7 doors. So if one leaves, I still have 4 doors that are filled, or whatever it is. Well, even that was too small. And so one thing that I did was I started doing multiple doors. And by 2010, I had 68 units of fourplexes. And I started going in and monopolizing quantity of doors. Then I realized even that was a pain in the ass. By 2012, I was like, damn, this is a pain in the ass too. Because I was still utilizing mom and pop property management companies. So I went from us managing to hiring a property management company. But the big institutional property management companies, Dan, they only wanted big assets. They didn't want this little stuff. This was still little. So I know in people's minds they're listening, they're going, that's not little, that's big, that's huge. And no, it's not. It's small. It's a fucking pain in the ass. So what I tell people, I tell them, look, guys, like you got to go big. And I wish I would have known this years ago, the security of going big. So then I sat back and said, okay, I got to do nothing under 100 units. And so everything we do now is over 100 units and really over 200 units. And it's because of the financial security behind that and the ease of management. I can get institutional property management companies to manage my assets for me. It costs me substantially less, way less headaches. I manage paper instead of properties, meaning I just audit their books every month. I get boots on the ground once or twice a year, and I make millions of dollars doing it. And it's the most beautiful thing I've ever encountered in my entire life. It's amazing. I love it.
I love that. So basically, to recap, the two lessons is you found a way to own the asset without having the debt tied to your name is kind of really what you were saying. There was a way to kind of be the middleman of it and not have so much liability, maybe a little less leverage. And then the second was owning larger apartment deals. Did I get that right?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Those two things are the most pivotal changes that we made.
Okay, gotcha. Very good. And then I love how you said that in the beginning of our talk here, you're talking about ego and pride being used as leverage, and you used it. And then here, to get this done, you put it in your back pocket. So I think that's an emotional intelligence you have. And I think that's important to hear as a listener, that you have to be able to switch between what's going on in your life. Do we need to be the grit? I'm getting this done and use the ego, or do you put it in the back pocket and do what needs to be done? So it's just the exact opposite. So that was really cool. What asset class do you like the most? I mean, it sounds like it's multifamily. Is that right, value add, or what asset class do you focus on the most with real estate, and then why?
I own everything. I own retail. I own office. I still build homes. We got a few short-term rental properties, not many. Those are a little more work. I own a lot of multifamily. I own warehouses. I love warehouses. I love office warehouse. I love multifamily. But not just multifamily. We build more of a workforce product that's more affordable. I wouldn't call it low income, but it's not. It's class A. We build it as a class A asset, but really we price the rents against class B assets. So it's more affordable for most people. We don't amenitize them with a lot of swimming pools and clubhouses and all the big amenities. Although when you drive by it, it looks like a class A facility, but we're able to lease it for a more affordable price. It's just a needed sector, first and foremost. And then second, it's a safer investment sector to be in right now because as class A properties fully amenitized become less sought after by tenants because of the cost to rent with inflation and everything else that's happening right now. This gives us a little bit of leverage in the marketplace. So it puts us at a little bit more of an advantage in regards to rent pushes even, and in keeping our sector of affordable housing in mind as a predominant aspect of what we do. So that's our asset class that we have really been hyper focusing on. It's been our primary focus of development.
Gotcha. Understood. Okay. And what kind of predictions are you putting in place for 2023, in the real estate market specifically? Could be, multifamily or workforce housing, or, exactly what you're building here.
Oh man, I hope that interest rates keep going up. I know that seems like arbitrage to some people, man. I hope they keep going up. And and the reason why is I know there's going to be people that get beat up, guys. And I'm sorry to say that. It's just, when there's blood in the water, there's opportunity. And I don't create the variables, right? I just leverage them as they come forth. I truly believe that the Feds have already said it. I truly believe that they're going to continue raising interest rates at least through the summer. They've made it very clear they're going to raise them throughout the entire year. And then 2024 is an election year. It's historically, interest rates and all that stuff will soften because they want Biden to be this is his first 4-year term. They want him to be a superhero, that he fixed this broken economy that Trump did, right? So however you look at it politically, it's just the way history goes. If it was Trump, it would have been vice versa, right? He would have done it so that it would have made him look like a superstar. And so it's just the way that politics works with economics. This is a macro level stuff. This is the big game. So we got to look at it that there's going to be some blood in the water in 2023 for most. Now, for investors, I think they should look at it in an entirely different perspective. Where there's blood in the water, there's opportunity. This could be a very graceful year of opportunity to create some massive, massive wealth for yourself if you really pay attention. Because what high interest rates do is, if you guys were watching and investing in real estate, you guys know the cap rates have been hyper compressed. I mean, I thought they were getting compressed when they went to a 6 cap. There was stuff selling a year and a half ago for sub 3% cap rates. So when cap rates get compressed that low and interest rates rise, you cannot refinance. And when you cannot refinance, properties can't be sold because valuations go down. So when cap rates get compressed, valuations go up. Okay, that means the value of the properties go up. But when interest rates go up and you cannot no longer afford those cap rates have to go up in parallel to interest rates. They have to. You cannot purchase an asset where the cap rate is substantially lower than the interest rate, because then you're trying to float debt. And if you float debt, that's where people get into trouble and they over leverage themselves and they go bankrupt. Okay, so inevitably over the course, compressed cap rates have to go back up, meaning that valuations are going to get hammered, including mine. My valuations and my properties are going to get railed. They're going to get hammered so bad. We know that. So we understand that this is not the time for cash out refinances. We understand that this is not the time to go out there and over leverage ourselves on low cap rates. This is the time to buy assets at a discounted price because of high interest rates and valuations going up. And so my prediction is buy distressed assets with low valuations and high cap rates. Here's the good news. You're not going to be doing cash out refinances. You're not going to be getting a ton of capital out on those. But when cap rates go back up, your cash flow also increases. So this is a great time to really focus on cash flow, ladies and gentlemen. 2023 is a year to hyper focus on cash flow, because as cap rates go up, that means your cash flow increases. So just take advantage of that cash flow. And then when cap rates in 2 years compress again, and you have the opportunity to refinance, valuations will automatically go back up with a compression of cap rates, and you'll be able to cash out on your properties and then just hold them forever. So this is a great time right now just to buy discounted assets, hold what you got, and just buy stuff discounted. So that's my little theory in a nutshell.
I love that. That was very clearly put. And I couldn't agree more with you. It's interesting and amazing how quickly and how much the Fed will control the asset and real estate. You know, Mike and I, owners of Granite Tower, we bought our first deals in 2012. So this is really the first time we've seen interest rates really climb and the pace in which they've climbed. So it's our deals where we have the low leverage fixed debt, we're just laughing all the way to the bank. Any deals you have where a variable debt or bridge debt that you don't have a rate cap payment on, or rate cap insurance, which luckily we have rate cap insurance on all of them. I could see how quickly you would become extremely cash strapped as your mortgage payments are doubling in a short period of time. So how do you position for downturn markets? What are you doing now as you look to see hopefully picking up great deals in 2023?
You got to have a little bit of liquidity. We're multi-diverse, which is awesome. We just sold off a little bit of our retail. We have so much stuff now, Dan, that when opportunities come to the table, like there's an office building that I owned since 2012 that it wasn't for sale. Someone came and asked us, would we sell it? It was a medical facility next door, and we were doubling our money. We literally cash flowed on that thing. I bought it out of bankruptcy in 2012. We cash flowed on it all the way till today. And that thing has made us money hand over foot. I paid cash for it, so we've never had debt on it. We've just made a shitload of money on it, cash flowing. It's always been fully leased. And the neighbor next door wanted to buy it. And you got to know when to say yes. I could have been greedy and said, nah, this thing cash flows, I'm going to keep it. And I thought, damn, man, I just gave them a price and they came back really low. And I said, hey, you guys came to us wanting to buy this thing. It's non-negotiable. Like, that's the price. And it was double what I paid for it. So 100% return on investment, right? I already depreciated the assets. Now I have tax liability. And we cash flowed. So 100% return investment. I said, I'm going to take this money out. I'm going to put it away. We're going to do some cost seg. And the reason why is, like, we're able to do stuff like that. And then our cash flow that we're making from our other properties, what we're having to do is utilize that for larger down payments. We're having to utilize that also for interest reserve on our new developments. The banks are more conservative right now. They're more restricted. So what we're finding is that, like, when we're going in and we're mortgaging stuff now, 80% LTVs are almost non-existent. Doesn't even matter how affluent you are, how experienced you are. Like, banks don't want to put themselves with that liability. So they're only leveraging 70% LTV, loan to value. And so, good relationships, you could still get away with maybe 75%, maybe even 80 if you're lucky. But we're looking at institutional lenders that are going in saying, 70%. So because valuations have gone back down, we've needed to be super conservative on how we pencil our new developments, because obviously the same valuations that existed a year ago don't exist today. Plus, we're not getting as much money for them. So two double whammies, right? So you got to know that, like, going in. So when we're underwriting these deals, we have to underwrite them at a higher cap rate, and we have to underwrite them at that higher cap rate means our valuations drop substantially. So, and they're lending us less money by at least 10% on each asset. So we're getting hit from three different angles: cap rates, valuations, and LTVs. So what we're doing is we have to be conscientious of that. And I think some people think that the way you underwrite a mortgage a year ago is the same way you underwrite a mortgage today, just add a couple percentages. It's not true. There's some moving pieces to that you have to be aware of, and you have to understand how they align in there. So I know that's a lot of information. It's impossible for me to go through all of that in this podcast, but those are the three variables that you would need to be paying close attention to. And that's those three variables are the three things that we're most closely paying attention to right now to make sure that we are in a position for wins as we move through this.
Yeah, that's great stuff. And you guys, if you're hearing this stuff and it sounds like too much, a lot of what Jerome's talking about just takes time and education and getting in the business and being in the business. And, if there's not enough time for that to really understand, you can partner with folks that are in the business. This is all they do. You ride along as a passive investor. And, that was the investment that really opened my eyes when I was in my snowboarding career, was how I can invest my money with folks that this is all they do. They're professionals in this one asset class, and they speak the language and understand how, as the market changes, which the market is never not changing, it's constantly changing. So you're constantly having to adjust. Exactly what Jerome's talking about here is your underwriting. And so the cap rates, valuation, and debt are the main three pieces you guys are kind of tuning into. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the Real Estate Domination Conference in Vegas. I've heard just a little bit about it. What's the goal of that, and when is it every year? Is that your event?
Yeah, it's my event. I do an annual event. We've done it 4 years in a row. We typically do it the first week in November. I'll tell you, this year's was a lot of work. I think I'm going to take 18 months before I do it again. We'll see how I feel in June or July. That's about the time we start marketing for it. It may land up in November again. I don't know. At the time when you finish these things, there's so much work. There's so much that goes into them. You sit back and you feel like brain damage is just exploded out of you. That's how much work goes in. So it truly is a gift. My gift back to everybody, to teach them some of the stuff we're talking about here. I try to make them as valuable as humanly possible every year, to bring them as much value with current market conditions and everything. So putting the speaker lineups together is very methodical. It's a high educational weekend. put together like a show, right? So it's really more than a conference, more of a show that's good, that we teach you how to blow up your business with current market trends and everything that's going on. And that's really what we've kind of stapled it to be. So this year, really hyper focusing on that affordable housing model. We really bring in industry leaders, that are business partners, affiliates, and colleagues and professionals that we utilize in our team and in part of our inner circle to teach you guys how to utilize and even partner with some of those same people. So real estate domination is badass. It's a great event. If you haven't experienced it, it's something that you guys should. We were rated the number one real estate conference in the world this last year by 3 different sectors. So we were really excited and proud of that. But yeah, it truly is something up to a different level. We don't, for those of you guys interested in investing, it's something that you guys should look into next year when we depending on what month we do it, that you guys should be a part of.
And is it always in Vegas? And can you attend virtually, or do you have to fly in to be there physically?
So we did the virtual event 2 weeks after the live event this year. This was the first year. We've done it different every year. So the first year we did it in Irvine, California, really successful there. The next year that we did it was the pandemic. So we did it virtually from Chicago out of the Kwok Brothers Studios, and we killed it. We hit it out of the park. We ran it as close to a live event that we could run it virtually. And that was a really interesting and fun year. And then we went to Vegas 2 years ago, and we did it at the MGM. We really liked working with the MGM. It was a really successful event. And then this last year, we scaled it by four times. And so it was a big event this year, and we did it again at the MGM. And so we'll see what next year holds. Sky's the limit. Awesome. Is all I can say.
So do you have any personal or business goals you want to achieve in 2023, or any philanthropy goals you're working on for 2023?
Yeah, we're doing some stuff. I partnered up with Cole Hatter, Make Money Matter. We're doing some stuff down in Mexico. They have the Make Money Matter fund that they put together for an orphanage that's up there. I was able to be a part of this last year. We're going to be a part of this now in February. Human trafficking is real. Drugs and what's happening through the means of drugs and drug trafficking and human trafficking in Mexico in particularly is really bad, because it's reciprocating into the United States. But it's alive and real. And when I got to see it firsthand last year, and it's hard to explain this like in a video, right? Like you see all this shit on TV, you see all this, you hear about it on the news, and you hear about how hard it is. But when you go and you're like boots on the ground and you actually live it and see it for a week, like I did last year, you're like, damn, like this isn't like something that's just, like this is real shit. Like this is like really happening. It's crazy. So we made it a point. We raised about $180,000 from stage for that, particularly at Real Estate Domination this year. We're building out 20 casitas for the mothers, and mostly mothers, but even fathers, but mostly mothers that are in rehabilitation, drug rehabilitation, and they have children. So there's an orphanage that houses the kids, and the mothers are going through drug rehabilitation. The drug use, these women are getting drugged, they're getting used, abused. It's just the whole thing. It's like, it's this evil machine that's just, it's crazy. I can't even go through all of it right now. That's one. I can talk on that all damn day. So that's one thing that we're doing. And then so I hope to make at least a small impact there this year. I know it's a bigger problem than I myself can do individually, but that's one goal for 2023, to be a part of that. And then really, successfully pull out about $200 million worth of development out of the ground. I don't really I say it on a numbers end, but the reality is that's kind of the perspective of where we're moving and migrating to. The reality of that goal is really, I want to pull all the goals that I have in Texas and Phoenix out of the ground successfully in 2023 without any limitations financially with the financial institutions. I think we're doing a really good job at that. And I think we're going to be very successful doing that this year.
Well, I love that the Cole Hatter Foundation and nonprofit, I'm assuming it is. And there's another one we donate to. It's called Underground Railroad, the Operation Underground Railroad, specifically one of Tony Robbins foundations that we've got into with child sex trafficking, exactly what you're talking about, just a massive issue to work on and help. And, I mean, 180 grand, that is a good chunk of change, Jerome. And I think it's very admirable. So excellent work there. As we wrap this up, any books or action items you could leave our listeners that you think would be helpful if they're looking to learn more about real estate and get into real estate?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go back to an old school recommendation. I think this book today is more important than any other book right now to you guys. And the reason why is because how you negotiate and you influence people in your lives and in your negotiations is really going to depict how I believe you come out of this economic downturn. So how to win friends and influence people. For those of you guys who haven't read that book or have shelved that book, I think this is the year to pull it back off the shelf and read it. How you influence people and how you manipulate negotiations in the next 24 months, I think is going to be a pivotal piece of how you do. And those who understand how to mentally manipulate situations to benefit from them and make it a win-win deal are really going to position themselves to win. So that's my recommendation for that purpose right now. And I think that book is important.
Yeah, and that is a powerful, powerful book. And because you said that, I'm putting it on my list to read for 2023. I read it probably a decade ago, and I remember reading it. I can see it over my shelf here, highlighted and marked up, but a refresher is something I'm going to get on there. So appreciate that. And, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap up this episode. And Jerome, I just really want to thank you so much for coming on the show today to add value to our listeners. And if our listeners want to get in contact with you, what would be the best way for them to reach out?
I'm easy to find. Just my name's been in the cliff notes here and in the video the entire time. All you need to do is either Google my name or go to any social media platform and plug in my name, and you guys will find me. And just DM us, messenger us, and hit us up. You guys can email us right off our website at jeromemaldonado.com. And my team and I, we're here for you guys. Anything we can do to be a part of helping you guys succeed. And will help us as well, because one of the things that Dan had asked about real estate domination, why did I do it? It's a selfish reason as well. You guys, if I help you guys make a ton of money and we're successful doing it, you guys are going to invest in our projects alongside of us. And then I got people praying for us, advocating for us. And at the same time, you're winning and making money as well. So it's a win-win deal. So reach out to us. We're here to help. And any way we can make a difference and move the needle for anybody, we're happy to do so.
I love that. Thanks so much. And ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening. We hope you gained some value and insight listening to this episode. If you have any questions or want to learn more about investing with us or passive investing in general, click the link below to reach out to us. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next week on another episode of the Keeping It Real Estate Show. Take care.